Cambridge Impronox presents the Weirdest Podcast.
Hi, welcome to Weird Ask Podcast. Thanks for listening again to this month's edition. I'm here with my co-host, Jack.
Lovely to be here. It's lovely to be here. You know, we're the Weird Ask Podcast. As our slogan goes, you know, we're certified freaks solving bizarrely specific mysteries every single week.
That's right. And, last week we had a really interesting case. I actually don't know what case we're solving this week. What's come through in our emails, Jack?
Well, by amazing technology, we've actually got in our notes here the case of the bulbous blueberry. Do you like blueberries, co-host Helena?
Personally, I find them disgusting, but a bulbous one, when that email came through with the weird ask, why is my blueberry so bulbous? I was piqued. My interest was piqued.
Well, first of all, I thought it was a medical condition, and then I realised that he actually did indeed mean the fruit. So we had no choice but to go down to Wickenham upon Cheddar, where the email's sender came from.
That's right.
And talk to him about his full fruit issue.
That's right, Jack. You actually managed to get down to the allotment in Wickham upon Cheddar.
I did, and I met Chad from Wickham upon Cheddar. He was a strapping young lad, I have to say, and he loved a flex in every respect.
I hate blueberries, but I tell you what, I would eat any blueberry he grew, except the bulbous one, which was the one he sent us his weird ask about. So let's go ahead.
Let's do that.
Your little visit to Wickham upon Cheddar.
Let's do it. Let's cut to that seamlessly right now. Hello, I'm here in Wickham upon Cheddar. Definitely have moved geographical location and more so in the past. And here we have, that's right, Chad. How are you today, Chad?
I tell you what, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling long, and I'm feeling like growing some blueberries.
You certainly look like it. You look like an enormous blueberry with realistic human arms sticking out of the side. Truly.
Thank you very, very much.
You look like a horror of God's creation, and yet I cannot look away. So tell me more about this blueberry situation you've got into, this fruity nightmare. This juicy jamboree.
Let me tell you, I grow blueberries because they're a superfood. Better than Huel, better than protein shakes. Blueberries is how you get muscles like this. So I grow a lot of them. I eat a lot of them. I dress like them. I even decorate my hat with them. But I grew this blueberry. And it is far too bulbous. I don't know what's going on. It's this big.
That big? That's almost this big.
Almost, but not quite that big. We've
got to have its realistic boundaries. I think that's what's important when defining blueberry size. So was there any running suspicions as to why this blueberry that you grew on your blueberry farms, also known as Chad Enterprises, any reason why it was so bulbous?
Well, you know me, I'm all about the natural life. I'm all about the natural muscles, the natural gains. Don't need none of these protein powders, just blueberries for me. But my neighbour on the allotment, he's into all that GMO stuff, isn't he?
I
think he cheats. I think he uses chemicals.
Heaven forbid, chemicals. I hate chemicals. I, for one, burnt a periodic table in my back garden, and I haven't been allowed back at school since. All right, so you're saying that you think that it was the neighbour's genetic activities that influenced this in some way?
Yeah, I'm suspicious of that, man. Nobody's carrots are that beefy. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. Thank you very much, Chad. One final question. Can I have your hat?
You solve this mystery? You and I can talk about it.
All right. I never got the hat.
Well, negotiations are ongoing, of course.
Clearly, we've got 1 week left, or else, you know, it's all going to go downhill.
Now, this neighbour, we were able to inspect the carrots, and they were partially beef.
Yeah, it was very odd. I mean, I went into a field and there was a carrot standing there, and it had hooves, and then it had a tail, it had an udder, and then I realized I was in a cow field, and I went to the next field over, and sure enough, there was a carrot made of sculpted beef. Again, another
Orange
horror.
on the outside, bleeding rare as soon as you cut into it. Not as tasty as you'd imagine either.
I know, it made me made my eyesight better, but also downside, it did give me gout. So, you know, it was a real compromise.
And the texture was not great.
Yes.
We weren't able to pin down the neighbour at first, but what I did was take a sample of the carrots and some pictures and scrapings of the bulbous blueberry to the chief of horticultural science at Wycombe-on-Cheddar University, where they actually only teach horticulture.
It's a highly specific field.
It's a rural community. They're very into their growing, and I had a very interesting chat with Professor Doc Martin from Wycombe-on-Cheddar's Horticultural University.
Let's cut to that now.
Yeah, let's show that now. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. I'm aware you're extremely busy this time of year.
Yes, I'm so busy, what with the exams and the plants and the tomatoes and the peas. You know, I've got a sweet pea experiment going, just like the one they teach in A-level biology, but better. What can I do for you, madam?
Well, I was wondering if you had any insight you could offer us. I'm from the Weird Ask podcast, and we've actually been called by a resident of the village, Mr. Chad. Now, he was asking, how could his blueberry have become so bulbous? Now, what he suspects is a neighbouring allotment here could have been using some sort of chemicals that have possibly leached through into the soil and affected just one of the blueberries on his blueberry bush. Now, I have brought a sample of the blueberry. I have brought a sample of a very interesting beef carrot.
Right. Yes, I've heard about the monstrosities happening over in that part of the town. If we just put the things into my machine over there, I would tell you what it is, but I don't actually know because I teach horticulture. But we'll have a look, shall we? Let's have a look. Let's do a little bit of typing on the computer, and it's coming up now. It's not GM. They're not the same chemical. In fact, I already dismissed this because how could a single piece of GM land on a single blueberry? No. What you want to ask yourself is, who in the hell would want to test something on a singular blueberry? Out of all the blueberries, why one? Why one? You're not asking the right questions. Here at Horticultural College, we always ask the right questions. We let the students do as they please. Some of them die by growing toxins, but we don't care.
That's really, what you've really done there is open up my mind to something that we possibly should have asked right at the very beginning. Is it 100% definitely a blueberry?
Well, that is a very, very good question. If you look at my computer results, whatever's happened to this blueberry, it's now about 6 blueberries, except they're not blueberries. If you look at them on the inside, they're not blue, they're green. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, madam? Ask the right questions.
And its DNA sequencing is showing
DNA sequencing is actually showing me like 5 different things here when there should be 4. So, yeah, you've got a mutant on your hands. In fact, I reckon if you put this in the ground and tried to grow a plant out of it, probably grow a new species of berry. You know, some things aren't actually berries. Bananas, they're berries, you know.
I have heard such a thing. And the beef carrot?
The beef claret is a monstrosity that should be destroyed and stored wherever nuclear waste is stored. But you know what? I've got exams to attend to. But do let me know how this turns out, okay, ma'am? Because I would love to know more about plants.
Absolutely will. Of course. I'd love to speak to you again. Thank you so much for all your help. This has been very valuable.
You and I will do acid sometime. Bye-bye.
That was very informative.
The woman was clearly tweaking. She helped a little bit. It wasn't the results I was hoping for, but what she did say was very interesting. Are we asking the right questions? Now, what occurred to me is, why would Chad even be worried about a giant blueberry when he's all about the gains? Of course, it could be something that it's unnatural, but the DNA sequencing seemed to show it was definitely fruit and not genetically modified.
There was no beef in it. It was just 6 or 7 blueberries that had kind of coalesced together into a big blueberry. If anything, Chad would be happy to kind of make the consumption of blueberries more efficient. Though, yes, I agree. Professor Doc Martin is, a dubious source. She also keeps sending me actual Doc Martens in the mail, and it's getting very annoying. I have called the police.
Now, of course, 6 or 7 blueberries molding themselves together suggests some sort of sentience. Possibly they are organizing themselves against this regime of being picked and eaten.
Clearly there's some kind of communist regime manifesting itself in the blueberry field.
Maybe they felt that if they could form themselves into a big enough blueberry, they would be unpickable, uneatable, perhaps even large enough to kill a man.
This is the intention of all unions, Helena, to kill. Speaking of which, have you signed up for my newsletter for Weird Ask Podcast Hosts Union? I feel like we need more members.
Yeah, I mean, I have been paying my dues, and I await your, lobbying on my behalf to our overlords.
I'm excited. Anyway, so the next thing I did was go back at the dead of night for non-dubious reasons and see if the blueberries had any other ideas in Chad's field. And sure enough, the blueberries could talk. We hadn't noticed.
Of course, what happened was, now this is a great interview because the blueberries can talk, but the sounds they make are unintelligible to all but the most finely tuned druid.
Right, so we employed a druid.
We did bring our resident druid, another member of the Weird Ass Podcast Union, and our druid was able to interpret the sort of creaks and groans coming from the blueberry bush and the blueberries themselves.
It was incredible. It was me talking to the druid who was translating an entire army of small fruits acting as one entity. It was quite an anomaly, much like the anomalies from the 2007 ITV series, Primeval, that will never get mentioned again in this entire podcast. So let's cut to that interview.
The thing is, if you have a weird ask, you're going to get a weird answer.
That's what I said to my wife, and needless to say, divorce proceedings are, going ahead. Hello, blueberries. I am here in the middle of the night. The light's still on because global warming, and we have our blueberry bush here, and here we have our druid. His name is Metalhead, unrelated to his hat. It's simply because he's got a metal brain. He's going to die in 5 days. Anyway, this is the interview. So, blueberries, why have you coalesced into a larger set of blueberries?
Gah. I don't understand why you'd begin with such a trivial question. Ask the right question.
Then what is the right question, Blueberry Potential Overlord?
You should really be asking, why am I a blueberry and not a different sort of fruit?
Okay, can you answer that question? I feel like I'm being interviewed by you now. It's a kind of comedic reversal of roles.
Gla. Gooper. Schlop.
Yes. Of course, given all of the different choices of how I, a great spirit being, could represent myself in the world, I looked at the allotments and chose the most appropriate plant. It appeared to be this one, as it resembled its owner.
So you're saying that you've possessed the blueberries and have taken their form and then coalesced together? Is that what you're saying? You've taken the form of a plant that you've chosen?
You have put your finger on the nail's head and struck it like lightning twice.
That's a phrase that I will never hear again, much like the 2007 ITV series Primeval. So we have a Weird Ask podcast exclusive. An alien consciousness possesses a blueberry and tries to kill its owner. The classic tale. Final question, and this is to our druid. Can I have your hat?
You wrap up this case nicely and we can talk.
All right. Sure enough, I got the hat and it was at Metalhead's funeral. It was quite an awkward reception, put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, the tragedy is, of course, by the time we'd figured out what was going on, the blueberries had already taken their effect on Chad, and next time we saw him, it was actually when I was going to visit him in the hospital to explain what had happened.
He had mutated into half-human, half-blueberry alien consciousness, which meant that the entire conversation between you and him was only consisting of a single word per person back and forth. Funny comedic.
Yes,
funny.
That
funny
is what happened.
It was very specific. Let's cut to that right now. There's no reason for to dilly-dally about this one.
Why?
I...
Blueberries!
aliens.
What?
Yes.
Cure?
Unknown.
Games?
Hat?
Leave!
So really, there was no resolution. It was just kind of a tragic end to a character that really didn't deserve it.
It was tragic. Of course, Chad had left his allotment unattended now for quite some time, and his neighbour, Rob, of the beef carrots fame, started paying double rent and moved in onto that allotment, increasing his beef carrot production. And I've got to say now, after trying it a second time, it's not that bad. I recommend Rob's beef carrot. Go nuts.
This Wet Ask podcast is going to be sponsored by Rob's Beef Carrots. So any opinions about how delicious, succulent, and how it can be especially enjoyed after a highly specific set of immunity jabs is completely, based on that.
Yeah. Also great if you're vegetarian and you want to continue eating beef. They are technically vegetables.
Yes. Ignore the screaming when you cut into them. That's the air escaping from the lungs in the carrot.
Yeah. Rob's beef carrots, a healthy, beefy treat.
Tune in for next week's Weird Ask podcast for an exciting mystery. Where did that hat go? That's the punchline of that bit. Hope you enjoyed it.
Bye.